This is History Honeys, and this is our podcast. I'm Grace Woods.
I'm Lawrence Olefsky.
And I'm Maeve Gallagher. On our podcast today, we'll be discussing the Civil War and Reconstruction in the United States. The Civil War lasted from 1861 to 1865. This war was between the Union and the Confederate States. The Civil War was caused by the differences between the free and slave states. It centered around the idea of state rights. State rights is the idea that states had the right to control all law and rights in their state. Reconstruction was from the time period of 1865 to 1877. Its aim was to include African Americans into society post-Civil War. Another goal was to include the South with the Union again. In order to get the South included with the Union, Lincoln introduced the 10% plan to the South in 1863. This plan stated that the South can rejoin the Union if 10% of voters would pledge loyalty to the Union. Reconstruction also introduced the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. These amendments, like the 13th, abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship. The 15th Amendment gave African Americans the right to vote. These were all passed during vote Reconstruction. And thank you to our sponsor today, Standard Oil. This is the best oil around. Go get it today and use our code LMG for 5% off.
Marcel Jones is a 21-year-old African-American freed slave. He has a wife, and they currently live in Arkansas. MJ and his wife Kimberly both attended school once they were freed. MJ learned how to read and write in the church where school was held. And he is our guest today on our podcast. Do you feel like there's still inequality in the U.S.?
Yes, I believe that there is still a lot of inequality in the United States. I feel as an African American, I am still not equal to my white person. We were given many rights, but I still believe white people have more than us. I believe that there's a long fight until we are considered equal. There is still inequality, and it is a big issue among the African American community, and it will have to be resolved over a long period of time. As I was applying for jobs, I felt the color of my skin would affect if I got the job or not. Still, I believe that there is a long fight in order to get all the rights that white people have.
Do you think Reconstruction was a success or failure?
I believe that Reconstruction was a failure but had some success to it. I believe that the amendments that were added, the 13th, 14th, and 15th, were a success because it granted African Americans rights. Yet there are still many things that are unfair among the African Americans. There is violence against us, such as the KKK, and there are poll taxes, literary tests, and the grandfather clause that limit our rights that were given to us. It prevents people from voting, which lessens our chance of a political voice. I believe that overall Reconstruction was a failure because there is still major white supremacy among the government, although slavery is abolished, and we are still not completely equal.
feel that the Confederate States should have joined back into the Union as quickly as they did?
I believe that the Confederate States joined back into the Union extremely quickly after the Civil War. I believe that the Confederate States began the war because they succeeded and started the war. I believe that they were readmitted into the Union extremely quickly under the presidency of Abraham Lincoln. I think the Confederate States should have been more than 10% in the plan. If the 10% had a larger number, I believe that there would have been more loyalty to the Union.
What is your form of work now?
As a free man, I rent land from a former slave owner in Arkansas. He was one of my former slave friends that previously was an owner. I'm a sharecropper. A sharecropper is someone who rents land by giving a proportion of their crop to the landowner. So when I grow crops, I give them to my landowner as my payment form.
How has your faith impacted on your life as a free man?
My faith has always been extremely important to me, especially as a slave. It kept my head up during very hard times, and it kept me going, and it still does, even after I was free. It became the center of my life, and it also helped me get introduced back into the workforce. It also granted me the chance to learn to read and write, and helps me in the literacy test because I was granted the right to vote.
How did the 15th Amendment affect your life post-slavery?
The 15th Amendment affected my life and encouraged the African American community to vote. Although there are many things limiting the people in my community to vote and exercise their right. These include the poll taxes, the grandfather clause, and the literacy test. Poll taxes were taxes put in place in order to be registered to vote. Because African Americans struggled to have jobs after they were freed, it limited them to be able to pay for the tax. The grandfather clause prevented my community and weakened our political power because it meant that if your grandfather or father voted prior to 1867, their son could vote too. Also, the literary test influenced how much we were able to use our political power. The literacy tests were given to people that were trying to vote, and it showed that you had to be able to read and write in order to vote and exercise your right.
Have you ever personally been victimized by the Ku Klux Klan?
No, I have not personally been victimized by the KKK, although there are people in my town that support the white supremacist group. This group has an extreme prejudice against African Americans that are citizens of the United States. There are also flyers posted in town that threaten African Americans, although they were supposed to be equal to them.
How do you like the Radical Republicans?
I politically support the Radical Republicans. This group is an extremely good group because it supported abolition in slavery states prior to the 13th Amendment. Post the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, they still continued to fight for the rights of the African American community. This group has been extremely influential in the Reconstruction time period and enabled our group as African Americans, to become stronger and have more of a political voice over time.
What can we do as the History Honeys to support the African American community during this time period?
In the time period of Reconstruction, you can help the African American community by signing petitions in order to advance more rights for African Americans, and also vote for people in office that fight for African American rights. You can also support African Americans in many ways by helping them fight for their rights.
What were your feelings after you discovered Abraham Lincoln was assassinated?
As an Abraham Lincoln supporter, I was extremely shocked and very disappointed because he has done so much for the African American community and the movement in order to get African Americans more rights. He also truly kickstarted this revolution and the African American movement, and I will forever remember him as somebody who influenced the African American community greatly.
How was your life improved during Reconstruction?
My life has improved in many different ways. First off, by no longer being a slave. My wife and I have now improved in our lives in many different ways. We now are free and work on our own terms and no longer are property. We are thinking of starting a family because we had just purchased a house to begin our new life, and we are extremely excited and to look into the future on what will happen, and let's hope that the African Americans will advance and receive more rights in the future.
Thank you, MJ, for letting me interview today. It was really interesting hearing all the historical facts about the Reconstruction era. I hope to speak to you again. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you guys again for having me on the podcast. It was great talking to you guys, and it was extremely great to shed light on the Reconstruction era and let your fans know the important facts. I hope to be back soon and discuss more of what my experience was like. And come back next Tuesday to tune in to hear from abolitionists during this time period. Thank you. Tune in next week for History Honey.